Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Jumper T8SG Plus, not to be confused with the T8SG Original or the T8SG V2, which does look very similar to this. In fact, almost identical. The only difference is this has Hall effect gimbals and it's got a bigger OLED screen. So what is the big deal about this jumper transmitter? Now, I never got the chance to check out the original, but if I cast back to a couple of years on the channel, I did a tutorial building this guy. This is the Walkera Devo 7E, and I modified it. So originally it just supported DSM2, DSMX, but of course Deviation TX, it's a website that has hacked the firmware, and if you add individual modules, then you can hack into all sorts of different protocols like toy grade, Hubsan, and Frsky, and everything basically, and that is why it is popular. In fact, when I did my tutorial of this guy, the amount of offers I got to be paid to build one, well, you know, I just couldn't fulfill any of those requests. But, you know, this was a big deal a couple of years ago, and it was before these multi-modules came out. So you can see here I've actually got 3 SMA connectors, and that was because there's 3 individual chips and you could only do 3. But that is not needed anymore. We can have a multi-module chip, and that is what this guy has got. And if we take a look at the instructions here, these are the chips. They are the CC2500, the CYRF6936, the A7105, and the NRF2401, and those 4 chips pretty much cover all of the 2.4 gigahertz protocols, like I say, including Fly-Sky, Frsky, and all of the Chinese toy protocols. In fact, I think that is where this started off. You see, there were a lot and are a lot of toy grade quadcopters, and you get the little cheap controllers with them, and they're very limited. The reason why I started with this is I fly mode 1, and all of the toy grade models that come out are mode 2, and they're a pain to switch around. So I built this, and this is going to be available in mode 1 and mode 2. This actually came in mode 2 and I've converted it. And I should say, actually, if you do want to get this in mode 1, just get the mode 1 version, because I had to hack away a little bit at part of the gimbal because one of these potentiometers got in the way of the gimbal. So I guess they do have a specific mode 1 and mode 2 version. Of course, I've been able to hack away at that and sort that out, but it's just something that I noticed straight away. Now, I think the original one was popular because it was very cheap, and I think this one's going to be a little bit more expensive. Now, this is a early prototype, but on Banggood at the moment, they're listing it at £107, which I think puts it into like Frsky territory, maybe the QX7. And straight away, I can tell you that despite these being Hall effect gimbals, the QX7 gimbals are better. I mean, just look at how small this transmitter is. You know, I've been spoilt. I've been flying with the X10S, which is, you know, it's like a fighter pilot's controls in comparison. So just because these are Hall effect gimbals does not mean the gimbals are actually any better. I mean, you know, they feel alright, they feel quite light, but all it means is that there's no contact there. So you should get a more accurate stick. But when it comes to the feel of the sticks, yeah, they feel quite light, they're quite springy, and compared to the Devo 7E, there's a lot more tension there as well, and it's very small. And I thought the finish of this was going to be more premium, but I tell you, in the hands it does feel quite cheap and plasticky. But you know, if it does the job, then I'm not too fussed about that. But I do want to put that out there because it is a more expensive transmitter, but it does feel quite cheap. So taking a look around the transmitter, and you can see that we've got a removable antenna, which I like. And then looking around here, we've got a USB connector for upgrading Deviation TX. We have got a trainer port around here, and then we've got two position switches on here, and then all of these are 3 position switches. They are a really nice quality switch, I have to say. However, it is tricky setting up a 3 position switch in Deviation TX. It is designed for a 2 position switch, and I'm mostly going to be setting up 2 position switches because, yeah, it is a real pain in the mixer, I tend to find. And then we've got our trimmers here, which are nicely placed. Now, this is interesting. I mentioned earlier about the potentiometers. These are a full potentiometer, so they go all the way around that. I mean, I'm not going to be using a potentiometer with what I fly because it's mainly mini quads. You know, if you were using maybe a camera gimbal or maybe a pan and tilt on a wing, then you might want to use that, but it's nice that it's got it, I suppose. And when I reviewed the IRangeX transmitter, you know, the one, it actually got taken off sale because it had some issues. Some people said that the buttons are more intuitive on the jumper transmitter, and I agree. You've got the up, down, left and right, and then if you compare that to the Devo here, you've got all these individual buttons, which always took me some time to figure out. This one, yeah, it's nice and intuitive, I think. Now, if we look on the back, you can see it takes a JR module, and I think this is really strange, actually, because this is a multi-protocol transmitter. It's covering pretty much all of the 2.4 gigahertz chips, but they've given you the option to add another one, and the only way that you can access a module on the back is through the PPM. So with all of your different protocols in the menu, you've got the option to output PPM as a serial, and then that will activate the module there. So I guess if you were using perhaps one of those long-range modules that use PPM, then you could do that, but you certainly couldn't use Crossfire. Maybe in PPM mode, but not the Crossfire protocol. So yeah, I'm a bit unsure about this, really. I don't know, maybe some future development there, but not too useful, I don't think. And then the battery bay, just got this clip here at the bottom. It's come with a balance connector, and it will take up to 18 volt, I think, but I'm just using this little tray here because it's difficult finding a LiPo pack that will fit in there. I'm sure there will be ones that fit though, but I just don't have one to hand. And then this just goes in this little connector here. It is actually a balance port, so if you take a 2S LiPo and plug that in there, it will power up. So the screen is OLED, so if I hold the button down there, you can hear a beep, so it's got a buzz. It's also got haptic feedback, so just a little motor with a weight on it there that vibrates when you turn it on. This is very bright. I do like it. However, I don't think you can adjust the brightness. You do get this nice carry case with it, which I like, and like I say, you know, it is very small compared to all of the other transmitters. You also get a neck strap, and you get this single instruction manual, which I'm not too keen on it. It just gives you a link to Deviation TX. It tells you some of these specifications here, but you know, it even doesn't have all of these labeled up, like it doesn't have the trainer port. I would have liked a bigger manual explaining more things, but there you go. Now, one of the selling points they are saying about this transmitter is that it's got a external voice config upgrade. I'm not sure what that is, but you can see I've got the option there in the model menu, but if I go into it, it says external voice currently not available. So looks like that's going to be some kind of future upgrade, so I don't have any more information on that at the moment. So if I scroll down here, we've got the buzzer volume, the audio volume, which of course is nothing at the moment. You can turn vibration on and off. Got the battery alarm, it's set to 4.1 volts, which is correct for 4 AA batteries. And if you come down here, you see backlight there, it's on 5. However, if I change this, nothing happens, it just stays the same. So that is not connected. I don't know whether there's something in Deviation TX that they could do to change that, but for now we're stuck at this brightness, and it says dimmer time as well, 20 seconds. It does not go dim, so this is always on, if you are wondering. Now, when I've reviewed these multi-protocol transmitters in the past, I get a lot of comments saying, why would you bother? Why not just get a iRange module for your Taranis and have done with it? And yeah, it's a good point. You can get one of those. But the thing is, with Deviation TX, let's say a new model comes out, like a new Hubsan or something like that, and then within a couple of days, someone's ported it and hacked it, and they've done a nightly build of the new protocol. You cannot easily put that onto a module. So, you know, for the casual user, the modules in the Taranis are going to be fine. But if you are a serious toy user and you want the latest protocols, then that is why you might want to go for this. That being said, at the making of this video, the T8SG Plus and V2 both have bespoke Deviation TX firmware on there, so you won't be able to use the nightly build of the original T8SG. However, the original T8SG has been discontinued, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a nightly build eventually for the T8SG Plus and also the V2. But at the making of this video, if you updated this to the T8SG firmware that's on the nightly build, then it wouldn't work properly. Okay, so I could spend all day going through the functions of Deviation TX, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do a simple model setup for you. So if I go into the menu here and go into model menu, model setup, and where it says load, I'm going to choose a brand new model. And if you go into here, you can change the name if you want to, but I'm not going to bother with that because it'd take forever. So the model type, I'm going to select multi-rotor, and then if we come down here, so you see here where it says Devo, this is where you select your protocol. Now I'm going to be setting this up for Frsky, so if we go along here, I'm looking for Frsky X, which is there. And by the way, if you want to use the module, if you go all the way to the end, there's one called ppm, and if you set it to ppm and then turn this off, turn it back on with your module in, your module will power up. It will also output the ppm value to the trainer port, otherwise you won't get anything out of the top there. By the way, USB HID you can use, and it will output the USB as a joystick for Windows if you want to use a simulator. But anyways, let me put this back to Frsky X, because that's what I'm going to be using. You can see all the other different protocols here, and when you are on that protocol, if you press enter, you can see the various different options. So for your failsafe, you can do FCC or EU version. I mean, it really is fantastic. So if we go back there, and then this is where you would bind, but of course I'm gonna have to set up the mixer. I'm gonna have 8 channels there. I think you can do up to 12 with this transmitter there, but anyways, if I now go into the mixer, this is where you set up your switches. So if we just go into there, and you will see here, if we go all the way up to the top, we've got AETR, so aileron, elevator, throttle, and rudder as the channel map. So you'll need to set that if you're using Betaflight. And as I've converted this from mode 2 to mode 1, I think I've got to reverse a couple of these as well. So you can go in there and reverse them if you need to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a ARM switch. So this is channel 5 here. So if I press down, you see where it says none there? I need to go into there and change that to just simple. So this is just going to be a 2-position switch, and it's really easy to do a 2-position switch. It's more difficult to do a 3-position switch, so I'll only do one of those to show you. So where it says source there on none, I'm going to select this switch here up the top, and you'll see it will change to that. We don't need to do anything else there, and you have to remember to save, otherwise it will just change it back to default, which is none, of course, every time. So save, And this is the one I'm not looking forward to, because this is going to be my modes, and I'm going to set up a 3-position switch, and unfortunately it's not so easy to do in Deviation TX. So I'll just do it the once so you can see. So if we go into here, and this time, rather than simple, we need to do complex. Already sounds horrible, doesn't it? What you have to do is you have to do 3 pages, basically. So, see where it says mixers there? You have to do 1 for every position of the switch. So, 3. And then, if we go down, this is page 1. So, if we come down here, we want to select the switch, so I think I'm going to have it on this switch here. So we want the 0 position, A0, so that's at the top there. Then I'm going to go down and we'll leave mux as replace. The source stays as none. Now the curve, I can already see you're not liking this. Curve goes as fixed, and then this is the scale, and you can see down the side there if I change this, so we want it to -100, and you can probably see where this is going. So page 1 is -100, page 2 is 0, and page 3 is 100, and that's your 3 positions there. So that's the first one. So if we go back up and then go to page 2, and again you can see the source says none, so now we want it in the middle position, so that's A1. So coming down here, replace again, source is changed to aileron, so that needs to be none. The curve again, that needs to be fixed, and then if we come down here, the scale, that wants to be 0 in the middle. Doesn't have to be exactly 0, because you can change the markers in Betaflight there. One thing I should say is if you press this back button here, it will delete everything you've done, so you have to avoid doing that. And so if I go back up to here and then go to page 3 and then switch, so now we want it in the down position. And then again it's just the same, so source none, curve we want as fixed, and then the scale at 100, so you can see it's at the top there. So that is all 3 of those pages. What a pain, isn't it? Don't like it at all. So I don't really do 3-position switches in Deviation, but remember to save there, and then that should work. So I'm just going to add another switch for a buzzer. So if we just go into there, and I'm gonna select simple and then source, and then I can either have this 2-position switch for my buzzer, or you can select another 3-position switch and it will just act as a 2-position switch. But seeing as I got another 2-position switch one here, I might as well use that. So I'm then going to do save, and that's a basic model setup for a quadcopter. The 3-position switch thing is an absolute pain, so I usually avoid that, but you know, you can do it, it just takes a little bit of time. And of course now you'd be ready to bind the model, so I can go back up there and then come down here and then do bind. By the way, you might want to change the power output to 150 milliwatt for Frsky there, but you do bind and then press your button on your receiver and you should be good to go. Okay, so let's do a quick test to see how well the sticks center. So you can see they are all reading 1500. They do move slightly, so let's put in some quick pitch movements, and we are looking for that figure to return back to 1500 or as close as possible. I'm doing fast deflections and it's pretty much going back to 1500. Now because the spring is a little bit loose, it is sort of going past the point of center, like it's sort of bouncing a little bit because of the loose spring. But if I just sort of do quick jabs on the pitch, then that stops that problem. So yeah, it's pretty much 1500 there. So let's try the roll now and see if that's the same. Again, I'm looking for it to return to 1500. and it's doing that fine. So no problems there with these gimbals. Right, so I've decided that the stock spring tension isn't going to cut it for me. I think I will struggle to fly, especially around center. It's too loose. Luckily, you can adjust the tension. So we have this screw here, which you actually have to screw in, and what that does is it lifts the spring to be tighter. So this is mode 1, so this stick's going to be on the other side for you. But then you can see you've got another one there as well. So that screw and that screw to tighten both of those. And then on the throttle, it's this one here. Of course, it's not the throttle because the throttle's not on a spring. It is the aileron for me, or the rudder if you are mode 2. Now I have tightened it up full, and you know, they're still pretty loose, but I think it's going to be fine just about for me to fly. Yeah, I can feel that is much better, but that is with the screws fully tightened up, so be mindful of that. Also, when you take this apart, it comes apart nicely, but there are 2 clips on the top here, so careful you don't snap those. You can actually unclip those there and remove them, otherwise it will just get stuck at the top. So yes, be very careful of that. And just while I've got all of this apart as well, I might as well show you the battery. You can see it actually comes apart, so if you do want to put in a bigger battery, then you've got these screws here. However, there isn't much room there because the module will get in the way. And of course, if you took this out, your battery would be sort of sat against the circuit board. So I guess you could put a bigger battery in there, but you might want to put some foam over there. And you can see as well, the opening for a battery isn't that big. So if you've got, say, a longer battery, you could sort of slide it in at an angle, I guess. By the way, if you are wondering, the SMA connector is RP SMA if you're wanting to, I don't know, maybe add a range extender on there or get a different antenna. And earlier I talked about the voice expansion, and I'm not sure what that's going to entail, but looking at this here, we've got all sorts of different tabs that are expecting a flat flexible cable. So we have got 2 here and also one that is accessible at the bottom there. So I definitely think there's some future development planned for this guy. Now I just want to mention this as well. This is the bracket for the tension on your throttle. I have tightened that down a little bit to make that a little more stiffer. And there's no option for a ratchet. Now I know this might not bother a lot of people, but I like to use a ratchet, and as a BMFA instructor I find it very useful when teaching beginners, because when there's a ratchet there's a click between the positions of the throttle, and I can usually say to a student a couple of clicks up or a couple of clicks down, or 4 clicks up, 4 clicks down, when explaining how much throttle they need to input. Also, as I'm a mode 1 flyer, the throttle and the aileron is on the same stick, and what can happen is if you put sharp aileron in, you can quite easily knock the throttle, and with a ratchet there's a little bit of tension there to stop you doing that. And I guess for a mode 2 flyer as well, you could perhaps sometimes knock the throttle when doing the yaw. I find a ratchet sometimes useful for that. However, we don't have the option with this transmitter for a ratchet, so I just wanted to mention that. Now, how can I talk about the size of this thing without it sounding like I'm talking about my D value? Well, I'm used to holding something quite large in my hands, and this is smaller. Nope, can't do it. Yeah, that's taking a little bit of getting used to. I'm really glad that I tightened up the springs. So the throw is completely different compared to my Tyrannus. It's got a shorter throw when going to the maximum, so that's taking some time to get used to. I'm feeling a little bit twitchy towards the center, and I'm knocking some of the other controls. Again, this is really just something you get used to rather than it being, you know, a problem. Okay, let's see what the RSSI is doing. because I haven't done any fine tuning with this or anything. RSSI seems fine, so yeah, it's very sensitive towards the center, so maybe some RC deadband wouldn't go amiss anyways. But yeah, it's alright, it's alright. I think the people who are fans of the original are gonna like it, and I think they're gonna end up getting it. And for me, I'll be using it for the models that have like DSM2 and FlySky, and if I just want to do a bunch of reviews in one day or something, I only need to carry one transmitter. And I guess that could be the case for you as well, if you've got a bunch of models. Yeah. Oh man, I feel more on edge than normal, just because it's out of my comfort zone with a different transmitter, and it's, you know, this is a, you know, fast copter. This is the Ishin TS215, they call it. I'm settling in with it now though. This is my genuine first flight with this transmitter. But yeah, it's starting to feel more comfy with it. It's freezing out here though. When are we going to get some nice weather? Yeah, looks like it does the job. There's no RC deadband put in there, and the sticks are centering, so I think that was a problem with the original. I think it could sometimes change by about 15 points, and you'd have to put in RC deadband. Now, I always put RC deadband in anyway because it makes your flying look smoother, because there'll always be a little bit of drift. Even with these Hall sensor gimbals, you still get drift. So RC deadband would make this flight look a lot smoother. But I just wanted to show really that the sticks do center quite nicely, so it's not completely necessary, but I would still advise to put some in, even if it's just about 5 points or something like that. Yeah, because the throw is different, all of my muscle memory has changed. So you might have seen that video that I did with the XJB145. I'm not feeling quite as confident, but my battery's low, so I'll come in for a landing. But yeah, I don't think you can get this yet, but I'll link it in the below. I think you will have a good time with it. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.